Hey everyone, welcome back to Canada, the Illusion of Freedom and System of Control. This video is going to be a brief overview of the deliberate deception, fraud, and trespass committed against every man and woman at the time of birth through the birth registration and certificate process. I have been encouraged by many people to break the information down as simply as I possibly can and as quickly as I possibly can, so people don't have to sit through a 2-hour video. I agree, so this is my best attempt at breaking down this information as simply and quickly as possible. Law societies. They've been around for a long, long time. Basically, law societies and members of law societies created legalese. They created the legal system. They created bar associations through their members being lawyers, judges, and members of government. They create government, and through the government, laws are created. Laws, going all the way back, stem back to law societies. They created legalese, which is not English. It looks like English. It sounds like English. But the common usage and understanding definition of words are changed to legal definitions of words. Law societies, through their members being judges and members of government, have created maxims of law, rules of construction, rules of interpretation. And one of their maxims is, he who creates owns, or that who creates owns. So law societies created pretty much everything in our world today. If you look back through their members are involved in all aspects of life. Now, creating their own language and their own rules and not telling the people of the world who are intended to be governed by these rules, these laws that are created, you have to ask yourself, why would they do this? Why would they change the meanings of words? Why would they create these strange rules on how to write and interpret their laws? Why would they do that? That's a very good question. Law societies, governing standards and practice. Law societies, not the Canadian Bar Association, govern Canada's legal profession. Once again, that which creates owns. All right. In the legal system, in legalese, there are two types of person. There is a natural person, a human being, naturally born, versus a legally generated juridical person. A human being naturally born, a man or woman, is a natural person in legalese. An artificial person is a non-human entity that is created by law and is legally different, owning its own rights and duties. Jusic person, legal person, body corporate. Well, what's a body corporate? Body corporate is a corporation. So there is the human being, the man or woman, and there is the artificial person or corporation. Two types of person in their legal system, in legalese. Now, one of their very important rules, one of their very important maxims of law is expressio unius est exclusio alterius. You just gotta love Latin. It's so cool. Anyhow, New Latin, the explicit mention of one thing is the exclusion of another. A principle in statutory construction, when one or more things of a class are expressly mentioned, others of the same class are excluded. That which is expressed is included, and that which is not is excluded. A rule of statutory interpretation that says, if something is mentioned as being included, then anything that is not mentioned is by implication meant not to be included. A rule of construction applying to both statute and legal writings that states that one thing having been mentioned, the other is excluded. The mention of one, the inclusion of one, excludes all others. So here we have the Interpretation Act, an act respecting the interpretation of statutes and regulations. Application. Every provision of this act applies unless a contrary intention appears to every enactment, whether enacted before or after the commencement of this act. So it applies to every enactment unless there's a contrary intention. The provisions of this act apply to the interpretation of this act. And bumping up, we see some definitions up here, which are important to read and understand. However, we are concerned with another definition, and here we have rules of construction, property and civil rights, duality of legal traditions and application of provincial law. Both the common law and the civil law are equally authoritative and recognized sources of the law of property and civil rights in Canada, and, unless otherwise provided by law, if interpreting an enactment, it is necessary to refer to a province's rules, principles, or concepts forming part of the law of property and civil rights, reference must be made to the rules, principles, and concepts in force in the province at the time the enactment is being applied. So, in the Interpretation Act, both common law and civil law are equally authoritative and recognized sources of law of property and civil rights in Canada, unless otherwise provided by law. Very important to know, unless otherwise provided by law. We have to find out where and what law it's otherwise provided. More rules of construction. Terminology. Unless otherwise provided by law. When an enactment contains both civil and common law terminology, or terminology that has a different meaning in the civil law and the common law, the civil law terminology or meaning is to be adopted in the province of Quebec, and the common law terminology or meaning is to be adopted in the other provinces. So, common law language, terminology, unless otherwise provided by law. Keep that in mind. Person, or any word or expression descriptive of a person, includes a corporation. Now we have to look back at our maxim. Expressio unius est exclusio alterius. The inclusion of one excludes all others, which is a rule of statutory construction and a rule of statutory interpretation. Let's apply that rule. Person, or any word or expression descriptive of a person, includes a corporation. It does not say a man or woman. It does not say a human being. It says any word or expression descriptive of a person includes a corporation. Therefore, it excludes everything else. In the Interpretation Act, a person is a corporation. Let's have a look at the Criminal Code. Everyone, person, and owner, and similar expressions include Her Majesty and an organization. Everyone, person, and owner, and similar expressions include Her Majesty and an organization. Once again, it doesn't say man, woman, human being. It includes only Her Majesty and an organization. Everything else is excluded. What is a body corporate? A corporation. Federal court rules. These rules fall under the Federal Court Act. So if you need to apply these rules, you have to know and understand the Federal Courts Act and then the federal court rules. The same goes with provincial courts. You need to know what rules apply to whom they apply. Rules for regulating the practice and procedure in Federal Court of Appeal and the Federal Court. These rules apply to all proceedings in the Federal Court of Appeal and the Federal Court unless otherwise provided by or under an Act of Parliament. Inconsistency with the Act. In the event of any inconsistency between these rules and an Act of Parliament or a regulation made under such an Act, that Act or regulation prevails to the extent of the inconsistency. Interpretation. The following definition apply to these rules. Let's jump on down and look for our favorite word. Person. Includes a tribunal, an unincorporated association, and a partnership. It does not say a man or woman or human being. A person under the federal court rules is a tribunal, an unincorporated association, and a partnership. What is an unincorporated association? Unincorporated association means an organization of two or more persons other than a partnership that operates under a common name for a common purpose or undertaking. That's the federal court rules. And as you can see in the definitions, the federal court rules, the rules for regulating the practice and procedure in the Federal Court of Appeal and federal court do not apply to men and women. Rules of the Supreme Court. Once again, rules of the Supreme Court of Canada. Except as otherwise provided by the Act or any other Act of Parliament, these rules apply to all proceedings in the court, in the Supreme Court of Canada. So whatever, and these also follow under the Supreme Court Act and have annexed the rules of the Supreme Court of Canada. So whenever you're trying to fight the system of control within the system of control, number one, keep in mind the entire system of control was designed to protect them from the people. Number two, you have to fully understand what rules apply to whom for each court, be it provincial, federal, supreme. It doesn't matter. You have to absolutely understand the rules and how they apply and who they apply to. The following definitions apply in these rules. Person includes a body politic or corporate, Her Majesty the Queen, and an Attorney General. Once again, we apply our maxim of law, expressio unius est exclusio alterius, includes a body politic or corporate, a body politic or body corporate, Her Majesty the Queen, and an Attorney General. What is a body corporate? A corporation. Once again, the rules of the Supreme Court apply to persons, which are corporations, not men and women. Well, how in the world does that work? Let's find out. The difference between birth certificate and certificate of live birth. Whoa, whoa. Whoa. For the most purposes of identification, people use the birth certificate as the original document, but some have recently heard about something called the certificate of live birth. What is the difference between the birth certificate and certificate of live birth? Hospital record of birth, certificate of live birth. The medical community has established the practice of issuing the certificate of live birth when a human being enters the world. This form will include the basics of Now, if we jump over here, we can have a look at the U.S. Standard Certificate of Live Birth. And if you go through this document, you can see there is a whole lot of information on here about the newborn baby's birth. Whole pile of information in the certificate of live birth. More information. Certificate of live birth definition. When a baby is born, both a certificate of live birth and a baby's birth certificate are issued. The certificate of live birth is an unofficial document issued by the hospital for data entry purposes. Now, this is misleading. The birth certificate is not issued when the baby is born. And the certificate of live birth is an official document because it is certified by the people that were there during the birth. That is an official document. Every other document is an excerpt of the certificate of live birth. Registration of birth. Register of birth. All births that occur in Alberta must be registered by the baby's parents with the Alberta government. Okay. By law, every child born in Saskatchewan must be registered with eHealth Saskatchewan within 15 days of their birth. Registration is needed to create a permanent record of a person's birth and to order a birth certificate. Once again, that's not entirely true. The permanent record was created by the certificate of live birth. And then comes the birth registration. If you look carefully at this birth registration, the first name and the middle name of the baby are in both upper and lowercase letters. How we all write our names. However, the surname, the family name, the last name is in all capital letters. And if you notice, the name of the hospital is written in upper and lowercase. The name of the doctor and witnesses are written in upper and lowercase. So the birth registration is an extract of the certificate of live birth. And then the birth certificate is created. And if you notice on this birth certificate, it's from the same example as the registration. Now, the entire name is in all capital letters, not only the surname or family name. Not all birth certificates have all the names in capital letters. And you will find that the last name or the family name, surname, will be in all capital letters. The same thing with all your government issued ID. So the government tells us that we must, and by law, register our children, and it is needed to create a permanent record, which is deception. Because the original permanent record is a certificate of live birth. It has the most detailed information, and it's the original. The birth registration is an extract of the certificate of live birth, and the birth certificate is an extract of the registration of live birth. And usually you can see the newborn baby's name going from upper and lowercase letters to at least all capital letters on the last name, the surname, the family name. So what does that mean? What does that do? Once our children are registered and have a birth certificate, the next and final step is the social insurance number. Now, they don't tell us that through this registration of birth and the birth certificate that they're creating an artificial person, that we are deceived into believing is us, the living man or woman, the human being, in order for their acts and statutes and laws to apply to us. Because as you can see, they apply to artificial persons and corporations, not men and women or human beings. We're tricked through the registration and birth certificate into believing we are the artificial person that's created by the government. Remember our maxim of law. He who creates owns. We didn't create the birth certificate. The government did. We don't own it. They do. We just have been deceived into believing we own it, and that is us. The last step is the social insurance number. So the social insurance number, the SIN, is a 9-digit number that you need to work in Canada or have access to government programs and benefits. In their system, the artificial person needs a social insurance number. A man or a woman, a human being, needs permission from no one to work, to support themselves or their families. Now, through this whole process, we become employees of the government. Our social insurance number is our government employee number. This process takes the newborn baby free through the registration of live birth, creates the artificial person, the birth certificate, which we are deceived into believing is us. But it's an artificial person, a corporation. We didn't create it. It's not ours. And then, in this system, we are forced to get a social insurance number and work for the Government of Canada, or the Corporation of Canada, or the Service Corporation of Canada. We're not given a choice. Are you free if you are forced into a system you don't even know about? Excuse me. Are you free if you're forced to work for a corporation? What is capitis diminutio? Capitis diminutio maxima, the highest or most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage, when he became a slave. when the baby was born, the man or woman, the human being, through the registration of live birth, created the artificial person, which we are deceived into believing is us. And right here at the top, you can see this is to certify that the following is an extract from the registration on file with Vital Statistics Agency. It's an extract. The original is the certificate of live birth. This is who we are. The man or woman, the human being that was born. Not the artificial person that was created by the government. I hope that gives you a brief overview on how the system works. The next video is going to go further and show how this applies to case law. That being said, thanks for watching, and if you like the content, please subscribe and share.